What's going on, guys? It's Zach here. In this video, I'll be going over an underdog draft I'm doing. It's in Best Ball Mania 3, I believe. Maybe it's Best Ball Mania 4. I don't know. Just to be clear, underdog's not a supporter. Just doing an underdog draft. Figured I'd record it and put it up on YouTube. So yeah, I'll just be going through my strategy here. This is a draft that's got a $25 buy-in, and then you compete in a best season-long best ball tournament and earn rewards up to $3 million if you get first. Obviously, we'll try and get first year. It's probably not going to happen, but it's just kind of fun. It's fun doing these drafts and sort of seeing where people are putting their money where their mouth is and sort of getting a better gist of how these things go. So I've got pick four here. In general, I would expect myself to end up with either Tyreek Hill or Cooper Kupp here. I will be very sad um, if Tyreek Hill, Chase, and Christian McCaffrey go or Tyreek Hill, Chase, and Jefferson go. I don't really love taking Christian McCaffrey, although at pick four, I'd obviously feel like I have to. But we'll see how it plays out. We saw Justin Jefferson go at pick one. Um, in general, I found myself going pretty wide receiver heavy in these because I find that in general, the spike weeks are produced by wide receivers, especially in a best ball format, and it helps to get a larger quantity of wide receivers on your roster than running backs. Obviously, it depends. If I go wide receiver heavy early, then I'm going to want to lean towards. Oh, wow. So we just saw Stephon Diggs go at 2, and then we saw Jamar Chase go at 3. I feel like at pick 4, I have to take Christian McCaffrey. I know I was talking about not, but at pick 4, I've got to go McCaffrey here. Getting McCaffrey at pick 4, it's very different what we're seeing in drafts this year because generally what you'd see in years past is any the top running back is the first pick, and probably the second, third, and maybe fourth pick are all running backs. Normally, you see 8, 9 running backs go in the first 12, and now we're seeing generally 3 or 4. So it's been really interesting to see how all the running backs have gotten knocked down the boards. I think pretty. It's certainly opening up an opportunity for people to zig while everyone else is zagging, or zag where everyone else is zigging. Um, there's a real opportunity here where you could go more running back heavy early, but what I've found in drafts where I do that, especially going 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds, is I really do quickly run out of running backs or wide receivers that I like, and there are a lot of running backs in the later rounds that I like quite a bit. So now that I've got McCaffrey here, I'll probably go in towards a hero running back build where Christian McCaffrey is my anchor at the running back position, and then unless a huge value presents itself, I'm probably not going to find myself taking a running back for the next 4 rounds. I'll probably try and get 3 wide receivers here, and then if I get a value at either Mark Andrews or if I get a quarterback value that I like quite a bit, I'd be willing to do that in the first 5 rounds as well. But yeah, like I was talking about, we're 11 picks in here, and the only 2 running backs off the board are Austin Eckler and Christian McCaffrey, which is just crazy. You'd think normally those would be the 1 and 2 overall picks, so it's just kind of fun to see what's happening in drafts these seasons. So we saw 3 running backs go in the first round. I generally feel like that's pretty typical, seeing Bijan, Eckler, and CMC go in the first round. And then after that, I feel like there's plenty of value in the second round at running back. I've really enjoyed getting guys like Nick Chubb, Tony Pollard, and Josh Jacobs towards the latter half of the second round. But so we're coming up here in 10 picks. We're picking at pick 20-ish. I believe it is pick 21. So that would have us picking either Patrick Mahomes, Devonta Smith. In my ideal world, I get Chris Olave here. I've talked about how much I'm a huge fan of Chris Olave many times so far this season. I think he's just in line for an absolutely massive season. I've been drafting him pretty much everywhere I can, but I wouldn't expect myself to be able to get Olave here. If Saquon were to make it to me, I would have to consider it, but I really just feel bad starting running back. So I'm not in love with that pick. Getting I really want Olave. So hopefully Olave makes it. If he doesn't, at the wide receiver position, there's really nobody that I think is worth taking that high of a pick on here yet. So then at tight end, yeah, I could be convinced to take Mark Andrews. Don't love that. I really hope Olave's there. Oh, there we go. So we just lost Olave. I'm not a huge Devonta Smith fan, just from a fantasy standpoint. I don't think he's necessarily worth that second round pick. I'll probably just find myself taking Patrick Mahomes here. Well, I actually like Jalen Hurts more. and I find that Dallas Goedert's been a huge guy that I've loved getting. So I'm going to take Jalen Hurts here. I have no problem starting my draft going Christian McCaffrey, Jalen Hurts. It feels bad a little bit reaching on Jalen Hurts there, but I've got Jalen Hurts higher in my rankings, so I didn't want to just go by ADP here. I'm obviously not going to take both of them, and neither one of those two is going to make it back to me, nor was Josh Allen. So getting Jalen Hurts there as my second round pick, not bad at all. But we still don't have a receiver. This is sort of what I was talking about, where it it feels bad at wide receiver really quick. It feels like this year. Like these guys, I'm not a huge. I've got almost all of these guys ranked below consensus ADP. I do like guys like Keenan Allen. I think Jerry Judy's a fine pick, but those are guys that I can wait on a little bit. I like Ayuk. I like the rookies. I like Addison. I like Quentin Johnston. But really not in love with many of the values I'm getting a wide receiver here, so I might have to just take a running back heavy build here after what's started so far in this draft. I'm a huge fan of Ramondre Stevenson and Josh Jacobs. If either one of those two are there, I'll probably just take that because I don't love that. Although I do love Mark Andrews as well, but it's really difficult to build a roster when you go quarterback and tight end early, like I would be doing if I took Mark Andrews. It's not impossible, but I would feel like I have to leave the draft with only two quarterbacks and only two tight ends, and then I'm allowed to use my other, I think it's 16 picks total, or other 14 picks total on just running backs and wide receivers, which is certainly something I could do, but it's just really difficult because after I pick this next pick, I'm not picking for 18 picks, so I'll be looking at pretty bottom of the barrel wide receivers and tight ends and running backs after that. So I don't think I could take Mark Andrews here. I want to feel like I can at least be done with my first wide receiver or my next running back. I will be taking Ramondre Stevenson if he doesn't get drafted here. Um, and there he goes. We're having some tough luck there, but I think Josh Jacobs is probably the pick. I'm a little bit concerned. There's been rumors the word holdout has been thrown around. I don't think that's a real risk here, but oh man. Um, I've got Derrick Henry ranked actually higher than Josh Jacobs. I'm just concerned about potential injury and him getting old, but in a best ball format, I've got to swing for upside. I think Derrick Henry's got it, so I'll go Derrick Henry here. So looking at our roster, I've got Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry. Obviously, this is a very running back heavy roster. I've got what I believe to be two top five running backs here. I, I think this is sort of an example of me zagging while everyone else is zigging, despite saying that I didn't really want to do that. Um, so far, I'm not really in love with how this has played out. This is really contrary to how I've approached most of my drafts so far. So we'll see how it turns out. I'm I'm not in love with it. I feel like I'm pretty pigeonholed into drafting wide receiver now, but the benefit of what I've done here is now I can really limit my roster construction to very few running backs. I do not need to play more than two running backs on any given week. And having drafted Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, I am betting on both of those guys being really good and healthy throughout the course of the season. And if they're not, I'm screwed anyway. So what I'm going to have to do is I'll probably leave this draft with a total of five running backs. It doesn't make sense for me to draft either of these guys as backups because, like I said, if they get hurt, I'm screwed anyway. So I'm going to have to take the shotgun approach at the wide receiver position. I'll probably leave this draft with two quarterbacks because I took one high, so I don't want to draft three. I will probably leave it with three tight ends, unless I get. Yeah, I'm not going to get Mark Andrews. If I don't get Mark Andrews or Kelsey, I just feel like I need to take three tight ends, and there are plenty of guys late in drafts that I really like. I've been loving guys like Chig Okonkwo, Greg Dulcich, Gerald Everett, David Njoku. I think are all really good picks late in drafts. So maybe what I'll try and do is I'll go for a stack. I'll get Dallas Goedert at tight end. Let's see, Dallas Goedert. We'd be looking at like a sixth, seventh round pick. If I can get it with my seventh round pick, I'll be taking Dallas Goedert. Not going to force that pick. I'm not going to reach on him or anything like that. But that's sort of in the back of my mind for my seventh round pick. So we've got a little bit of time before our next pick. We're, I don't know, 6 picks away, 8 picks away. So now we're starting to look at the receivers we want. I'm not a huge believer in Calvin Ridley. I can start starring some guys here, guys that I'd be willing to draft here. I like Jerry Jeudy quite a bit. I like Brandon Ayuk. I like Marquise Brown. Other receivers I have ranked ahead of ADP: Tyler Lockett, Treylon Burks, Jordan Addison, Gabe Davis. I actually think has some value in, especially best ball. I like Jameson Williams quite a bit. I think Sky Moore's got some upside, but his ADP's really climbed lately, so I'm not a huge fan of that at ADP. I think Rondale Moore is actually a pretty good value as well. I've talked about Van Jefferson quite a bit. I like him. I love Marvin Mims at the value he is right now. I think Rashid Shaheed's another guy that I like quite a bit. He almost made my sleeper video, but he did not, just barely. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, cool. So we're 2 picks away. We should probably look up everyone here left. So, wow, it'd be really tempting to take Gibbs, but I can't. I can't do that. That would be a bad idea. So I'm not going to take Jameer Gibbs here, regardless of what happens. I'm not a huge fan of Etienne, and I like Gibbs, but I actually think David Montgomery's a better value later. I have them ranked basically back to back in ADP, so I just don't find myself taking very much of him. Looking at the guys I have starred here, I do have Marquise Brown ranked ahead of Brandon Ayuk, but by ADP, if I got to play the ADP game, I think I can get Marquise Brown with my next pick. So I'm going to take Brandon Ayuk here. I don't love Brandon Ayuk as my wide receiver one, but I think getting Brandon Ayuk and Marquise Brown, which I think we can do here, I think he'll make it around on my next pick. I'd be pretty upset if he didn't. Looking at the other wide receivers here, I like Mike Williams, obviously, quite a bit, but it's just tough. If I'm going to take Mike Williams, I'd rather pair him with Justin Herbert. I can't take Herbert this early. And in general, if I find myself taking a stack for the Chargers, I want to do Quentin Johnston instead of Mike Williams. I'm just worried about too much inconsistency with Mike Williams. It's been a bumpy ride, and I think Quentin Johnston could pretty easily take on that number 2 role in that offense. So we're still holding on pretty good here. I'd be shocked if Marquise Brown doesn't make it to me. I feel like I pretty much can't take a running back here, although I think Joe Mixon does have some pretty insane upside, given that you can get him in the 5th round right now, just because he's been a running back one pretty much every year of his career, and he should be the same position, but I can't take him here. I've got 2 running backs already. I'm going to be pretty light on running back the rest of this draft. I do like TJ Hawkinson, but I just don't think he's a very good value here. I don't think he's going to put up too many week changing performances, and he's just not going to be a guy that really makes a difference for my roster. So yeah, probably going to take Marquise Brown with this next pick, barring a disaster of someone stealing it from me right here. There goes Christian Kirk. I like Chris Godwin as well, but Marquise Brown's just got way more weekly upside. He's much more a deep threat and just a way better pick for me in best ball. So we're starting to feel a little bit more balanced here. We've got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a quarterback. I generally would like to just continue smashing wide receivers as much as I can. My next pick will be at pick 69. So I'd be looking to, in an ideal world, I'd probably get Jordan Addison and Traylon Burks with each of my next 2 picks. It'd be pretty lucky if that happened. I also talked about being pretty open to taking Dallas Goedert with my 7th round pick, and that's probably what I'll be looking at. Is I'll be looking at getting one of these 2 guys and then get Dallas Goedert. One of my favorite stacks. Speaking of stacking, stacking is, for those of you who don't know, if you happen to be watching, you probably do, but stacking is where you take a quarterback and a pass catcher of the same team because it correlates those good weeks with each other so that when one does well, the other one probably does, and it really just increases your ceiling on a week to week basis. And it's actually been found that in redraft it's useful, but especially in best ball, it's just a super valuable tool because in best ball only you're really only shooting for ceiling because you want guys that are just putting up massive weeks that are going to make a huge difference for you over the course of the season. And if you draft a quarterback and you don't stack with him, it really does limit the ceiling of your team, and it's going to make it really difficult for you to win a tournament like this. So when you're playing in a tournament style, you've got to be playing like you're willing to lose, basically, where if you're wrong, and that's okay. But if you just have a good team, you're not going to win anything in these leagues. So you really have to be risk as willing to take on risk as possible, just being mindful with that. So one of my favorite stacks this season has been going Jordan Addison and Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is the perfect quarterback too in a best ball draft because I think he's got a lot of upside because of that weekly touchdown ceiling, and he's also going to be pretty safe on a week-to-week basis as well. So I like Kirk Cousins quite a bit, and if I can stack him with Jordan Addison, who I think he's going to have a really great year, I'll probably be doing that. I get Kirk Cousins pretty often, pretty late in drafts. Generally take him at like the end of the 10th round, early 11th, which is generally where I'm looking to get him here. So a little scary. We just saw um, Traylon Burks get reached on here. So now we're 5 picks away, and there's only one wide receiver left ahead of Jordan Addison by ADP. I'm a little concerned he's not going to make it to us. If he doesn't, I don't really want to reach down past him at my next wide receiver pick, so I'd probably be taking Dallas Goedert and Miles Sanders. I'm willing to take Miles Sanders here. I like Miles Sanders quite a bit. I have him ranked significantly above ADP, and I think he's a steal at this draft pick, so I'm more than fine doing that. If I do draft that, it'll guarantee I'm not taking more than 5 running backs on this team, but um, more than comfortable doing that. Another thing I'll mention is it gets brought up pretty often, especially in best ball. People get really worried about bye weeks. I don't worry about it really at all. It's almost irrelevant for me. The only thing I would make sure of a little bit is that your onesie positions, your quarterback and tight end, just don't draft 2 of each that have the same bye week, because then you're taking a 0 on that week. But otherwise, it just really doesn't matter. That's brutal. 1 pick before us, we lose Jordan Addison. So um, that's okay. I think we're just going to take Miles Sanders here. We're going to be pretty running back heavy, but I'm really happy with this trio of running backs. I think these are guys that are all going to be running back ones this season, actually. I've got them all 3 inside my top 12, and there's a ton of ceiling there, and I can play one of them at the flex in this roster construction, so that's totally okay. So up next, I will probably be taking Dallas Goedert with my next pick. Hopefully he makes it there. I would expect him to, but not necessarily guarantee it. Each of these next 2 teams has a tight end already, so it would be shocking to see them take one. We did see a bit of a run on tight ends. We saw Kyle Pitts and Darren Waller go in between these, so we're a little scary there, but generally you don't see teams take 2 tight ends this high. I would be shocked to see that, and if that doesn't happen, then I'll be really happy with the start of my draft here. So let's just not have it for like the 4th time where my ideal player goes 1 pick before me. I think we're safe here, but you never know. If Dallas Goedert does go, gets taken here, I'll probably take Quentin Johnston. I like Jameson Williams quite a bit. I get him with my next pick, but given that I've been so running back heavy, I don't want to depend on him. All right, great. So we didn't lose out on Dallas Goedert. We got our tight end 1. I'm very happy with that. I got a stack with Jalen Hurts as well, so I've really increased the ceiling of this roster, and really happy with that so far. Looking at other stacking potentials in this team, I've got Ayuk. I don't really want to stack him with Brock Purdy. I'd like a better quarterback too than that, and because I took Jalen Hurts so high, I'm not going to be taking 3 quarterbacks. And then Marquise Brown, same thing. I can't just have Kyler Murray as my quarterback too, and I'm not going to take 3. So none of these wide receivers are really going to be stacking potentials for me. So yeah, so far, really happy with how this team's actually turned out. I really do want to build out this wide receiver room, but there's a lot of guys that I like quite a bit towards the ends of these drafts. See who else did I potentially not see at first glance. I think Brandon Cooks is a fine value as well. I can go even deeper. I find myself often starring too many wide receivers and ignoring running backs when I'm putting out my cubes, because I feel like I don't really find myself reaching on any running backs very much. There's a lot of value late, so I find myself being happy with whatever running backs fall to me, and I generally find myself, especially towards the end of these drafts, being more willing to reach on a wide receiver. Um, so we could take a look at the quarterback position. I'm okay to take a second quarterback. I generally, again, still I do find myself taking Kirk Cousins quite a bit, but there's no real stack potential there. Um, Derek Carr is another guy that I found myself taking quite a bit, especially super late when I compare him with Chris Olave. But I didn't get Chris Olave in this draft. I really do try and get him in the second round, but just wasn't able to this time. Um, let's see who else. I do find myself being in on Russell Wilson this season. I have often drafted Marvin Mims and Russell Wilson, and that's been my stack there. But again, you don't want to focus your draft around getting a stack, just sort of like thinking out loud here. If Dalvin Cook were to make it to me, I would take Dalvin Cook, and I would leave this draft with 4 running backs. Um, Probably 5, because Derrick Henry and Miles Sanders have the same bye, just in case Dalvin Cook ended up on a team with a Week 7 bye. I wouldn't want to be taking a 0 at a running back position. That'd be a really brutal week there. But yeah, Dalvin Cook in the 8th round, like that's crazy, just because like he's going to sign on a good team and on a team that's going to be signing him with the intention of using him. So I don't get why he's been falling so far there. I'm looking at tight end here. Not going to take a tight end right now. At wide receiver, we are sort of, like I said, we're in the 8th round and we're really running out of players that I like. I don't like Michael Thomas or Cortland Sutton. I like Jameson Williams, but as my wide receiver 3, that's really tough because I'm going to need that wide receiver 3 to perform on a week-to-week basis. It does give us some really nice upside. Um, that might be where I'm leaning right now. I like James Conner a ton. I think he's going to have a really awesome season, so I could just do that and just be done with running back. But it feels a little constrictive to my roster. Not really in on Deshaun Watson right now. So the way I'm looking at this right now, I'm leaning either James Conner or Jameson Williams. It feels like James Conner's the right pick. Um, I think it's going to stabilize my roster for the first 6 weeks. And if Jameson Williams makes it around to that next pick, then I've got to do that. But then I've got to be super wide receiver heavy the rest of this draft because I didn't really get any studs. I didn't get anything super safe. So I've got to just be taking guys that are dart throws, as many as possible, guys that have weak winning ceilings because, guys, I'm just going to need as many guys that could put up a 50-yard touchdown as possible and just hope I can time those out right. So we're going to go James Conner. We've gone with a pretty robust RB strategy here. Um, Not really how I like to play normally. I'm generally much more aggressive at getting those wide receivers, but the way this draft's fallen to me at pick 4, I've been shocked to see. Like at pick 4, when three wide receivers go in the first 3 picks, you feel like you have to take a running back at pick 4, and then again, all the receivers that I loved at round 2 went. So feeling pretty limited here, but I like the team actually. I just really need to make sure I've built out my wide receiver room more going forward. Let's see. I'll just talk about some other players while we go here. In this general area, I find myself drafting a lot of Antonio Gibson and Samaje Perine. I think they're both going to have really quality seasons this year. I think Gibson's got a lower ceiling just because of the offense he's a part of, but I think they're both good players on offenses. They're going to use them. So if you want to wait on running back in your draft, I have no problem taking either of those two late. I love them. I think they're going to be good low end running back 2s, high end running back 3s with weekly flex appeal and honestly potentially more upside than that. So I'm on the clock here. I'm going to be taking Jameson Williams. He made it all the way around to me, and I was surprised of that. So got to take him here. I got good value on him. He is my wide receiver 3, and I'm not going to have him for 6 weeks, so that feels a little bit bad. But the upside's tremendous there. I still like this wide receiver room enough, especially given this running back room and the quarterback I have. So there's plenty of upside from a wide receiver room, and there's still a lot of guys left that I like. I'm gonna have to go a little bit deeper here. Other guys I like quite a bit. I think Tim Patrick's fine. Not really a huge Devontae Parker fan. Tyquan Thornton I've had some interest in, but not a ton. But he's worth mentioning there. I think Nathaniel Dell's solid. I think Joshua Palmer also is a guy that people have just forgotten he exists, but he's still going to be a part of a good offense. Um, Deontay Hardy, he made my sleeper video. I'm actually a big believer in Deontay Hardy. I think he's got legitimate opportunity to be potentially the wide receiver 2 for that team. I wouldn't project it, but a world exists where he's a very meaningful part of that offense, and I think he's a good player. So I like drafting Deontay Hardy really late in drafts. Richie James is fine. He would actually probably help stabilize the roster a little bit. He's going to be a guy that's going to catch plenty of passes, I think, for Patrick Mahomes. Darius Slayton's another guy that I don't mind taking. I think he's a good player. He's probably going to be the outside receiver for this team. Paris Campbell's gotten a ton of hype lately. I don't buy it. He can't stay healthy. He had a decent year last year, but I'm not a huge fan. MVS obviously has upside on any given week, so does Osborne. So sort of right now, just filtering out all the wide receivers that I'm just not interested in. Because at this point, that's what we're looking for. Just take a look at the tight ends here. We're 11 picks away, so it's not going to happen. None of these guys I find to be extremely good values. So if I'm going to take a tight end right now, it's going to be me waiting, and I'll take a guy like Greg Dulcich at pick, I don't know, 2 rounds from now, and I'll pair him with Russ. That's something I've been doing quite a bit, where I go Russell Wilson, Greg Dulcich back to back, and that sort of gives me a stack, and then maybe I can get Marvin Mims the next round after that. So that's probably what I'll be looking for there. not necessarily need to do that right now. We could take a glance at the running back position, but there's really no need to here. I've got four that are just going to be rock solid for me all season. If any of those four don't pan out, my team's probably sunk. So I just really need to go all in on getting as much upside at the wide receiver position as possible. This could very realistically be a team where I leave this draft with 10 wide receivers. Um, Probably leaving the draft with 9 would be what I would expect, but that's going to give me that weekly upside that I need, given that I don't have any real true week in and week out guarantees outside of Ayuk and Marquise Brown on this team. So let's take a look at the tight ends here. Not going to happen this pick. We're 5 picks away. I'll probably. I really don't like any of these wide receivers at all. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. Um, if Kirk Cousins makes it to me there, I'd be interested. Um, I don't love that though. Kind of in a bit of a dead zone here where there's not really anybody that I'm in love with. See, all these wide receivers that are left, Rondale Moore would be a reach for me, but he's the only one that I really like. And at quarterback, Kirk Cousins is probably the next best option. Don't really love that pick. At tight end, can't really do that. So I'm probably just going to take Kirk Cousins here. It feels bad. I don't want to. Um, I think I'm actually going to reach on Russell Wilson because there's plenty of stacking potential with him. I'm going to get Marvin Mims and Greg Dulcich later, and I think that's going to give me a lot more upside on this team than what would have happened if I went with Kirk Cousins. There's not really anybody else that I want to stack him with, and I really feel a pretty strong desire to stack my quarterbacks with a receiver or a tight end just because I think it gives me a significantly higher upside on any given week. And given how thin I am at wide receiver, I really want to make sure that I'm pairing my pass catchers with the quarterbacks so that I'm still unlocking some ceiling with my pass catchers. I didn't love that pick though. I'll probably look back on that and feel like I could have made a better one. But all in all, I think I'm still okay with this team so far. So we're probably done with quarterbacks here. Looking at tight end, Greg Dulcich is the next best available. He will probably be my selection. If he gets taken, that'll be really sad. And then I would probably move on to Rondale Moore with my next pick. But he was not taken, so I will take Greg Dulcich, and I have now stacked both of my tight ends with quarterbacks. I like both of those tight ends a lot. They've got a lot more upside. I'll probably still take one more tight end here. I've been loving taking Gerald Everett really late. Um, so maybe my next 2 picks will be Gerald Everett and Marvin Mims or something. Um, Still got plenty of picks before my next one, but I'm actually liking how this team's turning out. This is a great quarterback room. I feel like I've got 2 guys that are top 10 for sure. I actually have Russell Wilson in the quarterback 7 right now, so I, despite reaching on him by ADP, he was a higher ranked quarterback in my rankings than anybody else left, so I didn't mind taking that pick. Jalen Hurts I've got as my quarterback 1. These are 4 running backs that I've got as top 15 guys for sure. I'm realizing I didn't touch on it earlier, but I took Christian McCaffrey at pick 4, despite the fact that my projections have Austin Eckler ranked just 1 spot ahead of him. I think that probably deserves a bit of an explanation. I think that although Austin Eckler I have projected higher, I think there is a more of a world that exists where things just don't break right for him. I think there are so many weapons in that offense that we could see those target numbers go down for him. We saw Joe Lombardi really emphasize the short passing game, especially with all those injured pass catchers that they had last season, and we saw just an absolutely bananas target share go towards Austin Eckler last season. If that dips down, I didn't project it to dip down too much, but a world exists where he loses out quite a few targets. He also has just scored a ton of touchdowns over the past 2 years, which I projected to fall down a little tiny bit as well. I think that Christian McCaffrey is just a more important part of the Niners offense than the that Eckler is to the Chargers offense. So in general, with that first pick, I'm much more risk averse. I want to make sure that I'm taking a player that, barring injury, I know he's going to be just absolutely fantastic, and Eckler's going to be fantastic as well. But I think there's a world that exists where Eckler falls down to, like, I don't know, RB5 if he's healthy, and if McCaffrey plays the full season, he's going to be a top three running back this season. So that's why I did that. I don't have any problem taking either one, but I just think that McCaffrey's the safer pick there at 4. All right, so we're coming up here looking at wide receiver. I would have no problem with my next two picks being Van Jefferson, Marvin Mims. In fact, that would be honestly great. I don't need to take another tight end here. I like Gerald Everett quite a bit, but I've got plenty with two. And there's other guys, like I could take Isaiah Likely, having not taken Mark Andrews. There's some very real upside with Likely. If something happens to Mark Andrews, then Likely's going to be a top 5, top 6 tight end on a given week. And I mean, he's good. He's a good player. It's going to be an offense that runs through the tight end position. So Likely's a guy I've been loving taking super late. So yeah, I think that's where I'm leaning. My next two picks will probably be. Oh well, never mind. We just lost Van Jefferson, so um, Marvin Mims still probably my next pick as a wide receiver here. Gives me another stack with Russell Wilson, which is really nice. Um, I still think he's going to be just. I think Marvin Mims has a legitimate shot to be the number 2 pass catcher for the Broncos. I've talked about him all offseason. I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to have an awesome rookie season. And I think it's going to be a Broncos offense that gets much better. So Marvin Mims, I have no problem reaching out a little bit. If I do take Marvin Mims, that will probably move Tim Patrick off of my board just because I don't really want to have 3 Bronco pass catchers. Obviously, I'm still betting on the offense by taking 2 of them, but I think that I limit my ability to spike on a week-to-week basis by doing that. So there we go. Marvin Mims. He's my highest ranked player left. I'll be taking him. He is my wide receiver 4, so we're pretty thin at wide receiver. We're going to be having to take a ton of them going forward. And honestly, it's probably going to be pretty much what all the rest of my picks are, except one tight end, maybe. But I actually like my 2 tight ends, and I wouldn't be too upset about not taking another one. So unless a value falls to me at the tight end position, I'm not going to take another tight end. I can glance at the running backs, but nobody left here. That's, if any of these guys ever crack my weekly lineup, given the 4 I have, things went wrong. So it doesn't make sense for me to look at running backs anymore. We're going to be all wide receiver. Unless there's a drop for me at quarterback. I like Derek Carr here, but I can't really make myself do that. Um, there's something to be said for taking Jared Goff here, given that I do have Jameson Williams. I would be shocked if there are many weeks where Jared Goff outscores both Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson. So despite the fact that there's a pretty crazy value there, it just doesn't make sense for me to take 3 quarterbacks. Let's look at wide receiver. I like Osborne. I also like Rashid Shaheed. I like Rashid Shaheed more. I know it's not playing the ADP game, but at this point, I'm just going to take the guys that I like because I don't think I can get both of them. And Rashid Shaheed, I just really love the value of right now. I think he's a super explosive player. He almost made my sleeper list, like I talked about, and he's going to be a guy that I mean, I'm pretty in on this Saints offense, the Saints passing game. I think they've got really good players outside of Michael Thomas. I like all the weapons there. Obviously, Michael Thomas is probably still the number 2 ahead of Rashid Shaheed, but I'm not going to be drafting much Michael Thomas because I just think he's a little bit over the hill. So yeah, we're getting pretty late in the draft here. Got not many picks left. I think it's 5 picks. Yeah, we've got 5 rounds left. Um, really like our team so far, actually, and I think that things are actually really coming together quite well. I'm obviously going to want to get several more wide receivers. I don't think there's really any benefit for me to be taking more tight ends or quarterbacks or running backs at all unless a huge value presents itself. Um, Taysom Hill is interesting, especially in best ball. I think he's the perfect pick as your tight end 3. He's going to be getting probably 500 rushing yards this season. He's going to be used as a goal line kind of guy. I think he's just, it makes sense for him to be drafted in best ball. I don't like the pick really in redraft because you're never going to know which week to play him, but in a best ball format, I have no problem taking plenty of um, Taysom Hill, even though it's a little bit gross. Cool. So we've got 5 picks left. I think if we can really round it out here with a couple of the guys left that I do like quite a bit. Looking at the wide receivers, if Osborne makes it to me, I'd be shocked, but I would absolutely take him there. I could take Tim Patrick off my board probably. I just don't want to have 3 Bronco pass catchers. Um, Nicole Hardman's always interesting just because he's going to have a few 50, 60-yard touchdowns this season. So there's something to be said there. Marvin Jones is another guy who's kind of interesting, but just don't really want to do that. Um, Especially because I didn't have Jared Goff. If I did, I'd be more interested there. Devontae Parker's interesting too. If they don't sign DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Parker does have a legitimate shot to be the number one weapon in this offense. I'm not a huge believer in Juju. Juju's still hurt. Um, so who knows there? Puka is another guy I'll bring up. He's getting pretty good reports out of camp. He's 5th round pick by the Rams this season. I like Van Jefferson, but I didn't get him, so I'm not putting 2 bets on this Rams offense. If Puka does end up being the number 2 in this offense, it's real upside there. I like Michael Wilson too. He made my sleeper video. He's the only big wide receiver on this Cardinals offense. He's a guy that could certainly get on the field plenty in 3 wide receiver sets, and if he doesn't, I'd be shocked. And I think he's got a certain. He's going to be a part of an offense that should be really good once Kyler comes back. So getting a guy who could be the number 2 weapon in a good offense is worth drafting this late. Quez Watkins is another guy I'm interested in. I don't find myself drafting too much of him, but given that I have Jalen Hurts already, I wouldn't be opposed to it. He's certainly a deep threat for this team. He'll have a couple 50, 60-yard catches this season, and in those weeks, he could really help my team, especially in a best ball format. So I don't mind taking him late. Um, cool, yeah. So somehow Osborne has still made it this far. I would, at this point, just be really sad if he doesn't. So let's see. We've got 2 picks left for them. Both these teams have 6 wide receivers. They only have 1 quarterback and 1 tight end. So they might be looking for those. I would hope. There's nothing there. They might just take a receiver. Yeah, if I were them, I would take a receiver, but not. Okay. Let's just really hope this guy doesn't go Osborne. He didn't. We got blessed. We have Osborne. I think he's still going to be a really involved part of this offense. He's probably the number 4 weapon still, but it's going to be an offense that throws so much that he'll be fine. I have no problem making him my wide receiver 6. It's pretty nice. And yeah, we're just going to have to get a few more. But it's kind of nice at this point. We just know which position we're taking. I mean, it helps to look every now and then, but I don't see any real value in doing it. There's something to be said for if Kyler Murray falls significantly below ADP. I won't take him at this pick, but if he goes 1 round later, I'd be interested just because I have Marquise Brown. It would be a nice additional stack for this team, so I wouldn't be opposed to doing that if it happened. Nathaniel Dell, he's just not going to have the upside I'm looking for, so I'm going to take him off of this. All these guys, they're obviously much higher by ADP than the guys I have ranked. Tim Patrick, I guess I could be convinced to do. I know I took him off, but I think he's got a legitimate shot again to be the number 2 weapon in this offense. It could be just tough to know, but if this Broncos offense is good, I think this is a good pick. So I'll do Tim Patrick. I've got 2 Bronco receivers, a Bronco tight end, and Russell Wilson. So that's a lot of Bronco involvement. I didn't exactly plan on that, but I think they're going to be a much better offense this season. I don't hate being invested in that team. I think it's going to be perfectly okay this year. So we're coming up here. We've got just 3 picks left to make. I will probably be looking to get 2 more wide receivers and then a value wherever it presents itself. I like Chase Brown. He's got some legitimate upside, but I don't know. I keep looking at running backs, and it's just probably not something I should be doing. Um, Looking at the tight ends that are left, nobody really gets me super excited except Likely. So if Likely ends up being my last round pick, that would be fine. So let's start ranking these guys. I'm probably leaning Deontay Hardy first, Quez Watkins second, Joshua Palmer. So that's probably where I'd be having these guys ranked. I'll probably be taking Deontay Hardy and Quez Watkins with my next two selections. I think that those are both going to be some really nice boom or bust options for me. And they're obviously guys that I'm not depending on a week in and week out basis. We just saw Kyler go, so any chance of me taking another quarterback, I think, is gone here. Um, yeah, no sense in taking another one there, which would be a waste of a pick. Looking at tight end, likely still there. I don't mind taking him that late, but we'll see what happens there. Might as well go add him to my queue. Yeah, so things are turning out all right. I don't hate this team. This is certainly a different roster construction than I've done in the past. Um, I don't find myself drafting many running backs this often, and I found that obviously when I do that, I need to be extremely wide receiver heavy in terms of quantity, just because it's not going to work out for me if any of these four guys don't pan out. So why hedge my bets with a fifth or a sixth one? No overlap on buys other than week 7 there, so no real issue from my week standpoint there. I obviously have a ton of week 9 buys. So we're going to have a thin team week 9, whatever, which means every other week I've got an advantage on teams. So no problem with that. Not something that's really worth looking at. So yeah, we're coming up in 5 picks. I'll probably be taking Deontay Hardy and Quez Watkins, like I mentioned. Um, yeah, I found that in general, if you wait this long on quarterback, just don't take another one. You're screwed if you need to these guys. So just it's not worth it. Don't take a third quarterback just to have Desmond Ritter on your team. Um, Leonard Fournette's a guy I don't hate taking this late. If you wait on running back, he's going to end up on a team. He'll get touches. He'll be reasonably good. Samir White's another guy you could take really late if you wanted to bet on a holdout from Josh Jacobs. You could get some spike weeks from him before he comes back. Yeah, so a lot of guys that make it this late. Let's talk about running backs maybe that are this late that you could draft. I think Chase Brown's a guy I've talked about already on some sleeper videos. Love him. No one else really gets me super excited. I like Abandaconda. Maybe earlier on in the season he'll get touches before Brees Hall is super healthy. Um, Ty Chandler maybe finds his way onto the field if Alexander Madison isn't great, but I wouldn't bet on it. Kareem Hunt's a guy you could draft. Maybe he ends up somewhere. He's been rumored about the Broncos. I wouldn't really count on that. There's been rumors about him going to Washington as well. So maybe Dwayne McBride's another guy you could take a shot on. Same story as Ty Chandler. All right, so it's our pick. I'll take Deontay Hardy. I really think Deontay Hardy's going to have a great season. He's going to have, I don't know, probably 800 receiving yards this year. Nothing special, but that'd be a great year for him. I think he's going to have some really nice spike weeks, and he'd be a guy that you could play on a flex week if you need to. Cool. So yeah, we're up in 2 picks. I'd be shocked if we can't get Quez Watkins here. I think we'll be fine doing that. Um, yeah, a lot of these guys I'm just not interested in. It's just no point. I don't see any path to them being good, so I don't, even on a weekly basis, I don't see why I would take them there. Quez Watkins is nice. He's going to give me a nice little boost on a couple weeks with Jalen Hurts there as that stack. And I've got 1 pick left. I am leaning towards taking Isaiah Likely. I have no problem taking Joshua Palmer. Looking at the running backs, Chase Brown's there. I don't hate it. That's the only one I'm even remotely considering. At quarterback, nobody worth even looking at. Yep, nobody else worth looking at running back. Don't think I missed anything here. So yeah, I'll probably take Joshua Palmer with this next pick. Um, or Isaiah Likely. I think Palmer's probably the better bet, just because again I'm worried about my wide receiver room, and I think that I'm more likely to need his weeks, especially because there's going to be some spike weeks for Palmer. We know there's going to be an injury to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, and then Josh Palmer will be on the field on a really good offense. So I think Palmer's the move. Yeah, I like this team. It's a pretty unique roster construction I'm doing here with two quarterbacks, four running backs, 10 wide receivers, and two tight ends. Um, but that's kind of how I had to do it because I waited so long on wide receiver. I still have two guys that I think are going to be really useful on a weekly basis. I think Jameson Williams is going to be great when he's back, and then I've just got a lot of guys that are deep threats on their own offenses that could hit a 50-yard touchdown every now and then. So I actually like this team. I like how it turned out. I wouldn't recommend this approach very often because I think it's just it feels kind of dirty. Like if one injury happens to my running back room, I'm done. Um, which is obviously scary with guys like CMC, Henry, and James Conner who get hurt all the time. Um, and only having two quarterbacks and two tight ends makes me really vulnerable those at those positions as well. But I had to compensate for the lack of prowess I had at the wide receiver position. Um, Very interesting to see a team here only took one quarterback. That's going to be tough. And we'll take Josh Palmer. And with that, I've got my team done. So, yeah, it's fun doing these drafts. I'm trying to do a couple here and there. Just sort of fun doing them. Good to see where the market's at and seeing how people are valuing players. Let's go over the team here. I've got at quarterback, I've got Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson. At running back, I have Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, and James Conner. At wide receiver, I have Brandon Ayuk, Marquise Brown, Jameson Williams, Marvin Mims, Rashid Shaheed, KJ Osborne, Tim Patrick, Deontay Hardy, Quez Watkins, and Joshua Palmer. And at tight end, I have Dallas Goddard and Greg Dulcich. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good team. I think there's enough variance and enough weirdness to it that it could perform well in a tournament setting. And really enjoyed making these teams, drafting these teams, making these videos. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. If you've got any questions about best ball or underdog, happy to give you my input. I'm by no means an expert. Obviously, this is gambling as well, so do that at your own risk. Understand that you have to be, I think it's 18 and in whatever states allow it. So just make sure you're doing everything that you can. Don't get addicted to gambling or any of that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you want more videos like this, let me know in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you next time.